Hello, I'm Maribel Lopez, the founder and principal analyst at Lopez Research. And I am really excited to be here today to talk about one of my favorite topics, and that is cloud computing. And it's clear that customers have embraced cloud. From the discussions that I have, companies of all sizes are doing cloud computing. They're deploying and consuming apps across private and public clouds. And as a result, we have a new term, multi-cloud, entering into our technology lexicon. So we've seen lots of benefits and opportunities with this, but we've also seen some challenges. Each cloud runs a separate isolated silo, it has its own development operating model. There's a lot going on in cloud is the short answer. And today I'm super excited to be meeting with Vittorio Viarengo, the VP of Cross-Cloud Services of VMware, to learn more about the state of multi-cloud. Vittorio, it's a pleasure to be with you today.
I am delighted to be here with you. Thank you.
Vittorio is actually quite the Renaissance person. He actually is a musician. He actually cooks. I've seen lots of interesting interviews with you, Vittorio, where you've talked about super cool and exciting things, and I'm looking forward to maybe exchanging a recipe or a cooking tip with you later.
That's good.
But for now, we'll talk about cloud. So there are basically hundreds of millions of workloads that are going to be running on these diverse environments. They're spanning public cloud, on-premise, telco clouds, hosted clouds. You name it, there's a cloud for that. You made several announcements at VMware Evolve, but I'd like to spend a few minutes talking about the overall trends that you're seeing and, frankly, the reality of where we are today in multi-cloud. I mean, customers obviously want to simplify the management of their multi-cloud estates. You at VMware have advocated multi-cloud services as a solution to that. And at the heart of multi-cloud services is this concept of abstracting complexity, which I think we can all agree is a good idea, similar to how virtualization abstracted the underlying hardware layer, which turned out to change the way we think about IT. So that is a wonderful concept. But when I go out and I speak to enterprise customers, there's this discussion, is that too good to be true? I mean, what's real and what's not real about that?
Well, not too good to be true. We are used to that objection at VMware, right? Because
Sure, yeah.
we have handled that objection with incredible technology for the last 20 years. So let's put that on the record. But there's always a trade-off when you create abstractions. And the trade-off is between performance versus, simplicity, ability to manage multiple things versus going deep and things like that. And the question is really the customer use case. What I can tell you is, let's talk about actual use cases.
Right.
First of all, when you're using VMware cross-cloud services like ARIA for management or Tanzu for application development, we never ever hide the underlying infrastructure. So if you're deploying something on Google or Azure, you have access to all the underlying APIs. So let's talk about the customers that has an application, a bunch of application on Azure, an application on-prem, and a bunch of application on Google, and they're using Google for ML. When they're using ARIA, for example, they get a single console to lifecycle manage the application, get all the application across all clouds, right? So somebody logs in and says, okay, I know what my applications are and how they are performing. Now, if the developer of that ML application needs to go and tune that ML engine, they will have to log into Google. There's no question about it, right? So, but the advantage, that's the trade-off, right? You can go deep on Google, but you get the abstraction layer that allows somebody that is on the hook to manage all the application to have the simplicity of managing in one place.
And I think that's an important differentiation, because what we're looking at is we're trying to look at where do we need the specialization and where do we need the simplicity, and how do we balance that from the perspective of the people that are trying to manage multi-clouds. And you mentioned ARIA for multi-cloud management, which is a great example of a multi-cloud service. What does ARIA or its new graph technology mean for organizations, and how does that differ from what they've had access to in the past?
So I'll give you an example. At Explore, our user conference a month ago, I was at a roundtable with a bunch of financial services companies. And I was asking around where they were in their multi-cloud journey. And I saw the entire spectrum. So the first customer tells me, oh, we're just on-prem and Azure. And then I moved to the second customer, and the first customer goes, well, the business units are using AWS. I said, oh, okay, so you have 3. And then, of course, we just bought a company that uses Google. So this is the customer that is in denial and hasn't realized yet that is going to have this problem of managing multiple applications across multiple clouds. And then you go all the way to the other spectrum. You have S&P Global that says, yeah, enough of this madness. The developers went everywhere because they went with the path of least resistance to build applications. And now I needed to get in front of them, leave them, give them choice of cloud, but put the guardrails of how you manage and provide security so you don't put data at risk. And so basically what ARIA does is solves that problem of how do you get visibility across all your assets that are in the cloud? Because without that visibility, without that graph that gives you that model, you cannot answer questions like, how much are these applications costing me? How are they performing? And is the infrastructure they're running on properly configured for security? So without that model, you have to like go and fetch that information across 2, 3, 4 different consoles.
Yeah, the equivalent of our modern day sneaker net, right? We've got one console here, one console there. I want to dig back into something you said earlier because I think it's important, and that's that hyperscalers might argue that they provide all of the management tools as well as the security and the other types of tools that you were just talking about that VMware offers. So at least in their own cloud. But are companies going to lose some of the benefits if they embrace this new VMware approach, or should they think differently about the value chain? Because there's one school of thought that says, hey, I've got everything I need in cloud A that is really specialized and works very well with that cloud. And my developers and other individuals in the organization know how to use that. But then on the other hand, I want to get back to that place if I had multiple clouds that I have that simplicity. So how should we think about that?
Look, I want to be very honest with you. If you are a shop that is AWS from soup to nuts to the core, there is not a lot of value in looking at VMware cross-cloud services. But if we agree that 75% of organizations have 2 or more cloud, that's where the value comes in. And the way we look at the world is really in this 2 by 2. When you have platform players at the top, that like AWS and Azure, which are also great partners, we have co-development relationship with all of these great companies. They provide an end-to-end solution that works for one cloud. And then you have tremendous companies that provide a point solution like HashiCorp or Snowflake and fantastic companies, right? CloudStrike, point solution that works across multiple clouds. We believe that we are the only company that has the vision and the resources to provide the platform approach that covers application development, management, security, access across multiple clouds. And so if your customer is out of the denial phase and is facing what we call the cloud chaos and is dealing with multiple clouds, multiple silos and exploding costs, that's where we come in and we allow them to simplify their environment and make sense and move to what we call the cloud smart. When you look at clouds, all these clouds as resources, and then you pick and choose the right deployment environment depending on the application's need.
You know, I think we saw this happen in the original set of virtualization and creating something that was sort of a pan company, pan IT world. So it makes sense to me. But there's always that challenge that my clients face when they like a technology vendor strategy, but they get wrapped up in the details of how to get started. So every company is slightly different. I fully understand that. But in your mind, is there a way to categorize the first several use cases you believe companies should adopt?
So they should always start for where their business calls for, right? But in my experience, having been a developer and having worked in infrastructure and development companies all my life, developer tends to run the show. And the reason why that is that applications is what gives business life. It's how we make money and how we save money. Yesterday, I met with a gigantic customer at our customer visit center, and they said to me, our business is going to grow threefold in the next 3 years, and we still have people in the factory printing stuff, work orders, going into another place. So they have to automate all that. How do they're going to automate that? With applications. And then they're saying, hey, and our end users, they want a digital experience with us, and we still have multiple applications, and so they want to build application for their customers. And so I would, if I were a customer, I would always look where developers are and what are their needs and start from there. So let's talk about use cases. One use case could be like a company like Cerner. They were using one hyperscaler for their applications. They made a business decision to move to another hyperscaler. And because they were using Tanzu, it allowed them to switch deployment environment in 4 hours. So that's a use case where the operation team was working closely with the development team to give them the deployment environment that they needed based on the business needs. The second one is management, right? So if you're finding yourself swiftly between console in your IT, as you're managing multi-cloud, you should look at cross-cloud management using ARIA. That's another great use case. And then there's also security. Like, for example, say that you have an application. Increasingly, any interesting applications, in my view, will use microservices across multiple clouds. And so another great example is Tanzu Service Mesh, which gives you the topology of your application and all the connection between the services, and allows you to set SLA. Think about the power. You can say, these applications that is built on all these microservices, I want to satisfy this SLA. And then the service mesh makes sure that it spins up more instances on AWS, more instances on Google, kills them when they don't need them automatically at runtime for you. Plus, because it knows the topology, it knows what the right connections are, and anything else that comes in is blocked for security reasons with microsegmentation. So these are three clear use cases of the dozens and dozens that are here today are going to emerge over time.
That's great. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think the audience is going to appreciate hearing those. And as you have more of those use cases that you'd like to share, please let us know. We want to make sure that we put interesting links to what needs to happen in all of our posts. So thank you. I want to maybe cap up with a discussion of, there have been a lot of announcements at VMware Evolve and other places. And when I speak to customers, sometimes it's hard to parse what's important in all the things that have happened. So I wonder in your mind if there's one thing you wish people knew or understood better about VMware and multi-cloud, because it is a fairly complex topic.
Yes, it is. And I think the one thing that I would love our customers and prospects to realize is that this is a new VMware. This is not your father's VMware. We have been so successful in the private cloud and we are proud of that. There's no other way to put it, right? But over the last 5 years, we have pivoted the company to this multi-cloud world, and we embraced the cloud as a native item. So we are using the lingua franca of the native cloud to solve these multi-cloud problems, which is APIs, microservices, and Kubernetes. Now, there is a use case where it makes sense for enterprise workloads to use vSphere and VMware Cloud to use our hypervisor on these various hyperscalers. But that's one of the use cases. We are increasingly investing in solving the problems of native multi-cloud. And that's, I think, the message that I want to leave to your audience and our customers.
The word native is such a crucial word in that discussion. Vittorio, thank you so much for your time, your attention, your insight, and I'm sure that many companies are struggling, at least all the Lopez research clients we talked to are struggling with this multi-cloud journey, and it's good to see that we're getting progress for simplifying that. Thanks again.
It was my pleasure. It was an excellent and engaging discussion. Thank you so much.